All right. Hello, everyone again. This is the third, I believe, Focus on Fulbright session of this summer. We're going to talk about asking for letters, both of recommendation and affiliation for Fulbright awards. So just a quick overview of our agenda. Hello, welcome. We've done that part. We're going to talk about recommendations, who to ask, when to ask, how to ask, for about 30 minutes, and then we will move on to asking for letters of affiliation, which are for study research folks, for the last portion, up to 60 minutes of our time together. So let's start off with what recommendations are. So for each of the Fulbright application types, you will need 3 letters of recommendation. So for study research, letters are evidence of your ability to successfully complete your Fulbright plans. They're a summary of your intellectual and professional preparation and a testament to your ability to represent the U.S. abroad as a citizen ambassador, which is a huge part of Fulbright. So those are the things they're looking for study research recommendation letters. For English teaching assistants, you actually have a form that your recommenders will fill out that has a preset list of questions that are looking for an explanation of your communication skills, your interest in teaching and ability to work in unstructured environments, and evidence of your ability to successfully teach English in a classroom abroad, and again, to be a representative of the United States internationally. So what are they not? Recommendations are not character references. You're not looking for someone to say, yes, you're a great person and you're cool, awesome, go. I mean, you do want it to say that, but it has to be a little bit more than just a reference of your character. It should not be generic. There are sometimes faculty get asked to write a lot of different letters. So some of them have like a form template that they just change the names on and send off. For Fulbright, that's not particularly helpful. You really want a letter that speaks to why you are a good fit for the program that you have chosen. And the more details that you can have in those letters, and the better that your faculty can incorporate your plans and talk about those pieces of evidence that Fulbright is looking for, the more competitive your application is going to be. Recommendations are quite important for Fulbright, again, because they're looking to see, do you have the experience, the skill set, the disposition, the interest in doing this thing to be able to do this thing successfully abroad. It is not something you write, especially in STEM fields. There are some professors, and this may be something that's a little more acceptable in some fields than others, that they'll ask you as an applicant to draft a letter, and then they will go in and sign it or edit it or complete it. This is not something you should do for Fulbright. Really, probably not something you should get in the habit of doing much at all. But again, different areas have different expectations. But if you are asked to write a letter by a faculty member or by a reference, and they ask you for that, you can definitely direct them to us with questions. We are happy to say, like, that is not something that's acceptable for Fulbright. We're happy to be the entity, the person that lays down that line. So feel free to direct us or reach out to us if you're having issues with that. It should also be from someone who is related to you. I know your parents probably love you. They're not the ones that should be writing your recommendation letters for Fulbright. So just make sure that, of course, you're keeping that in mind as you're moving forward. Questions on that? All right, awesome. So now we know what they are and what they're not. Who makes a good recommender? So you do need those 3 references. You should at least have 1 academic reference, and that's from someone who has taught you in a class, who has graded your work, who has seen you as an academic person, who has seen that part of your personality and your skill set. You should have someone who is a non-academic reference, so someone who has coached you, a supervisor at work, a mentor, an advisor. You can kind of figure out who might be the best fit for that, but it can look a lot of different ways. But you want someone who gives that more personal, non-academic perspective. And then 1 additional reference. That can kind of be your choice as to whether it's academic or non-academic. If you're doing something that requires a lot of like research, study, is really academically intensive, you might want another academic reference, especially if you're doing research, like you may want a research mentor to write one of these letters. They're, of course, really good for writing recommendations for fellowships. And then if you are planning to do maybe more teaching, maybe you've done some tutoring, or you worked in some sort of an educational capacity or with children or young adults, whatever your focus area is going to be, that might be a better reference for you. So again, kind of think about these three references as like giving a 360 picture of you. So you have your application materials, and then the references are there to help give that context and to provide evidence that you do all the things you say you do, and also to fill out any places where maybe you didn't talk a ton about one experience, but maybe that was really meaningful to your recommender and can show that you're very invested in serving as assistant ambassador, for example. So you really want to think about the references, not only in relation to you, but in relation to what they can say about you as a group. So that can take some brainstorming. And again, specificity is key. You don't want generic letters. You don't want to talk to faculty who have never taught you in class, even if their titles are impressive. For Fulbright, the title or the position of the person writing the recommendation tends to be less important than what the recommendation actually says about you. That's not the same for every fellowship, but for Fulbright, they're more interested in what the letter says than who it comes from. And again, if you have questions, we are happy as advisors to kind of help talk you through who might be a good recommender, which three of your many professors that know and love you would be the best. We can definitely help you do that brainstorming. So speaking of brainstorming, I'm going to ask you to take about 3 minutes and just jot down who you might ask for a recommendation. Some questions you can use to guide you are thinking about who knows you and your academic performance well. Maybe someone who's graded papers from you or seen projects, group or individual, seen you in a lab setting, those types of things. Who can describe my interest in and ability to interact with others, preferably in an international or intercultural context, although that can be whatever. Oh my goodness, there's another dog. Jade, what's your dog's name?
This is Andy.
Andy. Oh my gosh. We have Andy and Burt Reynolds. That's amazing. Wonderful. Thank you for interrupting. All right. So maybe Indy can't write a reference, but I'm sure there are some other folks in your life that would be good reference writer, but I think they need opposable funds for that. So interested in the ability to interact with others, especially as it relates to international things, intercultural things, different groups of people at different levels. And then think about who can give a good summary of your interests and ability to complete your Fulbright plans. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in just a moment, but with this, you don't just have to expect your recommender to already know all of your plans. You're actually going to have a conversation with them. That's best practice to have a conversation with them before you actually have them write the letter, so that they have a good idea of what you're hoping to do and what to include in your letter. So take 3 minutes and think about who knows you, who can describe your interest in interacting with other folks, and who can give maybe a good summary of what you're hoping to do. Take about 3 minutes. All right, and once you're done, you still have another minute and a half, but if you're finished, just give me a thumbs up reaction so I can see how we're doing. Okay. All right, looks like we are all good. Awesome. So some pro tips, just as we kind of transition from the presentation to the conversation portion, would be to approach your recommenders well in advance. So at least 3 to 4 weeks before the campus deadline. You do want to have your recommendations, at least 2 of the 3 of them, in by the campus deadline of August 16th. When you're approaching your recommenders, you can ask them if they have the time, if they feel that they know you well enough to write a strong recommendation. The key is their strong recommendation, and give them an opportunity to decline gracefully. So if you give them the space that if they don't have the time or they don't feel like they know you well enough, that they can say no, and you can say thank you for your consideration and move on to perhaps a different reference. Again, you want people who are going to be able to write really strong letters for you, and if someone's not in a position to do that, you want to make sure that you're giving them the opportunity to bow out so that you can have that strong letter of recommendation. So win-win there. Schedule an appointment and have a conversation. So again, this isn't the best way to ask for recommendations, is not just to say, hey, can you write me a letter, and then never provide any additional context. Usually what works best is to schedule an appointment either via Zoom. Oh, there goes the timer. Via Zoom, or if you're in Columbia or near wherever your professor might be this summer, sitting down and having an actual conversation about your Fulbright plans, about what you're hoping that they can speak to in terms of your skill set, your interests, your needs for the actual fellowship application. So giving them, again, that chance to ask you questions, to learn more about what you're doing and what motivates you, so that they can reflect that in their letter along with whatever they already knew about you and your experiences. And that is helping to set your recommender up to succeed. So we want to bring them into the fold. We want to give them an opportunity to say no. And then once they've committed, we want to give them everything they need to write a really strong letter. So some really good advice is to share a summary of your Fulbright Award. So that program page that's specific to your country, that's going to be a good thing to share so that they know what that country is looking for. They also provide on the Fulbright website instructions for recommendation writers. They have them for English teaching assistant and study research. They're a little bit tricky to find, so I did link them in this presentation, but if you are looking on the website, you go to applicants, application components, click on your award type, and then like within the drop-down accordion menu for letters of recommendation, there'll be a link that says instructions for recommendation writers, again, also linked here. And so that's something you can send directly to them to help them format their letter correctly, to know what Fulbright's looking for and what kinds of things are helpful to include. Give them a copy of your CV, resume, your transcripts, maybe even some essay drafts if you have them available. They can still be a little rough, but it gives your recommender a good idea of what you're hoping to do. So if you haven't already updated your CV or your resume, now's a great time to do it. No time like the present. And that will also help your recommender to kind of see all of your accomplishments, all of your interests in context as well. And this can be something where like you want to, of course, stay within the bounds of like, oh, the recommender is writing this recommendation. You definitely don't want to be writing a recommendation for someone or a letter or any type of thing like that. But you can consider giving them a couple of bullet points. So if you are sending all of this wonderful information via email and you want to say, hey, I'm hoping that you'll talk about my ability to like, I don't know, speak Spanish, and my research project on Spanish English language learning. Like you can say things like that and actually point them to certain things you want them to talk about. And again, that helps give them a little bit of direction. You're not writing anything they're going to include verbatim, just giving them a little bit of an idea of what you're hoping that they will include, given your relationship with them as a recommender and also as a professor or professional, however else you know them. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right. And then finally, write a timely thank you note. It's really like someone going out of their way to write you a letter of recommendation is going above and beyond. So you want to recognize that. I would recommend writing a thank you email pretty quickly after the fact. And then after you've submitted your Fulbright application, having an actual like physical thank you note is something that doesn't come along people's desks very often. It really makes a big impression. And that's actually something our team can help you with, because we do have actually a stash of thank you notes that you are welcome to use to thank your recommenders or your committee members or other people that have helped you with your Fulbright application. And then, of course, keep them informed if you advance, well, whether or not you advance. And then, of course, if you are a recipient or an alternate, like, please let them know. They're very interested in, and if they've gone so far as to write you a letter of recommendation, they're invested in your success. So definitely make sure that you're keeping them in the loop on that. All right, so next steps, and then after this we'll transition into more of a conversation, but the next steps are going to be to contact your recommenders and ask them to meet, or to just start that conversation to talk more about your Fulbright plans. Once you've confirmed that they do in fact want to write you a letter of recommendation and feel like they can write a strong one for you, then you'll want to go into the Fulbright online portal where you've opened up your actual Fulbright application and put their names in. So you put their names and their emails in the recommender portion, and that will send them the email that gives them the instructions to fill out and upload the letter of recommendation or the recommendation form for you. You should not be handling letters of recommendation at any point. If they feel like they want someone to look at it, or if they have questions, please direct them to us. You should not be handling those letters. Having confidentiality is something that's really important to enable recommenders to write letters that are authentic to them and their experience with you as an applicant. So definitely making sure that they know it's confidential and that it will go straight to the Fulbright system, and that we are here as a third party should they need assistance in any way. And then important, again, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but for those feedback committees, the Fulbright feedback committees that will be going on between the campus deadline and fall. Oh, here we go. Another person joining. All right, so to be eligible for a Fulbright feedback committee meeting, you do need to have at least 2 of the 3 recommendations submitted in the portal by August 16th. So we would love to have all 3 of your recommendations. Sometimes 1 or 2 of them gets a little squirrely. Keep us in the loop if that happens. But we do need to have at least 2 of your 3 recommendations to share with our campus committee in order for them to give really meaningful feedback about your application. All right, and then just some reminders, ASAP, if you have not yet, open up an application in the Fulbright portal. That's your official application. It's under the applicants drop-down menu at the very bottom, and that will get you access. Once I see that you have opened up an application in the portal, I will add you to the special secret Fulbright Teams channel for applicants who are active in the portal that will allow you to see successful past USC applications and other resources, so that as you begin to draft your essay materials, you're going to have those as examples to look at. No 2 Fulbright essays look the same, so it'll just give you an idea of what are some of the things that students have submitted that have been successful. It can be helpful to look at those. Our next focus on Fulbright, which will be short and sweet, so looking at the short answer questions, the abstract, the community engagement, and the plans after return, will be on June 20th, same time, same place, virtually at 5 o'clock on June 20th. And then July 1 is going to be the next essay deadline. So that's going to be when you will submit a second draft of your personal statement and statement grant purpose to your FPA. You're welcome to submit drafts earlier than that, but we want to make sure that you're submitting these drafts to at least keep on track for that August 16th deadline. If you have questions or concerns about that, contact your FPA or myself if you have not yet been assigned an FPA. And speaking of that, if you have not yet been assigned an FPA, you will need to fill out that preliminary application, and July 1st is the final deadline to be paired with an FPA, and you really don't want to miss out on that chance, because those are really, really helpful mentoring relationships that will help you to submit your most competitive application. So definitely take advantage of that if you are able to. And then finally, remember, we are here, National Fellowships team, myself and Matt Kloppenstein in particular are here to meet with you and provide feedback at any time. Essays, brainstorming, talking through who to ask for recommendations and how. We're here for all of that information. So definitely want to give you an opportunity to talk to us, and feel free to set up an appointment for that conversation. So I am going to pause the recording right now and do some conversation, and then we'll come back for the second half of the presentation. All right, after a quick commercial break, we're on to affiliation letters. So what is an affiliation letter? So an affiliation letter, you only need one of these for a study or research application, but that letter is from the institution or individual in the host country with whom the applicant is proposing to work. So with affiliations, especially for any type of research, you're going to need to be connected with some type of host sponsor. So that could be a university, most likely a university, maybe a library or museum. If you're doing art, it could be some sort of artist collective, or again, museum, school of art, something like that. It can be the kind of institution generally, or it can be from a specific individual. If you're working with Dr. Smith on a specific thing, you can potentially have that letter come from Dr. Smith or the head of the geography department if they're the ones who are kind of taking care of you, keeping an eye on you, giving you access to resources while you're there. The exact requirements will vary from country to country as to what specifically an affiliation looks like, who can give an affiliation. So make sure that you're reading your country specific page really closely so that you make sure that you're hitting all of those requirements when you're asking for your letters. And one important note is, even if a letter is recommended and not required by the application deadline, this is often the case with things like graduate degree programs, having one will make you a much stronger applicant. So if at all possible, even if it's recommended, like recommended really kind of means required. So make sure that you are taking a look at that. However, an affiliation letter is not an offer of admission to a program. So if you are looking to do a degree program abroad, this is not your letter of admission. That comes later in the process, potentially even after Fulbright has selected their folks who are moving to the second round of the application process, their semi-finalists. It's not an offer of admission to a program. It's an offer to support you should you be admitted to a program. It is not a promise of financial support. Fulbright is providing the finances for this experience. What an affiliate is providing is like a host country contact. They're providing a space. They may potentially, like if you need lab space, they may help you get that. They may help you get access to a library, or like help make connections, things like that. Things that are not monetary, but would still need to be in place for you to be successful in your country. So think through kind of one of those things that might be elements that you would need to ask for or ask about when you're connecting with an affiliate that would help you to do your project. And then an affiliation letter, very different from the recommendation letter, is not confidential. You can actually work with your affiliate on this, because this is something that they will give to you as a PDF and you will upload it. So you will see it, they know you will see it, and so you can work together to kind of make sure that the affiliation letter reflects the kind of relationship that you both want to have while you're in the country. So an affiliation letter must be written or translated into English. So if you're going somewhere where a native language is not English, you either need to have it drafted in English or find someone, maybe a teacher here at the university, or someone who can translate that letter into English on your affiliate's behalf. It does have to be printed on official letterhead, so making sure that it has whatever letterhead would belong to the university, to the institution that you would be working with. It should be signed by the author, preferably in ink. I don't know if Fulbright needs this, but usually I recommend signing things in blue ink just so you can tell I signed it. I mean, I don't know how much that really matters, but it should have a signature on it from the author. And it should indicate the institution or individual's willingness to work with the applicant. So again, to kind of host you in the country to help you maybe get access to some things. It should also indicate that they believe that your proposal is feasible and valid. So if you're planning to go and do, I don't know, 100 interviews with women in German hospitals about their birth experience, like, are you able to speak German? Do you know where to get a translator if you cannot speak German? Do you know what you need to do to get into the hospital? And can your institution kind of attest that this seems like a good idea and a feasible idea? And then, of course, any additional resources or contacts that they would be able to provide to help support you, access to libraries, visa support potentially, just kind of whatever their particular brand of support would look like. And again, read the host requirements very carefully, make sure that you are fulfilling whatever the country page is asking you to do. And I will say, I know I'm talking about like this being, oh, well, some say recommended, but it's really required. There are some countries that do not want you contacting your host prior to going there. So for example, for some of the degree programs, they may say, don't ask for a letter of affiliation. Again, read the requirements very carefully, do what they tell you. Come and ask us if you have any specific questions, because it does vary a lot from program to program. And I will say that Fulbright, if you haven't had a chance to actually interact with them yet, they're really responsive over email. So if you ever have questions and I mean, I send emails to them all the time, but if we have questions that we can't answer or that you need to know that's more country specific, they're a really, really great resource. So what does a good affiliation letter look like? So this is one of the things that is available in the Fulbright teams, is a bunch of letter of affiliation resources. So I have it up here on the teams, or OneDrive, or whatever they call it. It's so confusing with Microsoft. So yeah, so if you go into our documents, there's actually a whole folder of letter of affiliation resources. So you can see a bunch of different examples. And there's actually, and we'll go over this a little bit later, but a handy dandy worksheet on how to ask for a letter of affiliation. So you have a lot of good resources that can help you with this process. Just as a way of, by example, I'm going to show you just a couple of letters here, point out things that make it particularly compelling or a good letter of affiliation. So this one is for an affiliation for a research grant in Potsdam, which I think is Germany. So see, it's on university letterhead. It's addressed to the Fulbright Commission or the Fulbright Selection Commission. It has the applicant's name, also very important, name of the project, which is highly promising, current, and well conceived. Many aspects of this project are aligned with this faculty member's own research. Berlin and Brandenburg are a great place to do this research. Given the fact that the applicant will have 10 months for their research, I consider a project to be perfectly feasible. Again, that feasibility, that validity. The fellowship time matches exactly with the concert season. There you go. But the combination of archival and field work seems very apt for researching it. The question, if and how the listening culture in Germany has changed during the recent decades. With the chair of musicology, the applicant will find support for research on all levels. They'll grant the opportunities and license of a research scholar. So again, those resources, and provide necessary resources, library media information center, services at the graduate school, and working space at the department. So there you go. You can ask and see if they'll let you have a desk. There will be methodological assistance or methodical assistance for her work through the team. So again, a little bit of individualized mentorship that these folks have agreed to, and then putting this applicant in connection with concert halls so that she can do her research. And then also an opportunity to present a project. It's a pleasure, and we're excited to welcome her should she be approved. So again, signed and has the author's name on there. So that's an example of a really in-depth one. So that's a really solid, strong letter of affiliation. And especially if you are doing research, this letter of affiliation holds a lot of weight with your Fulbright application, because they want to make sure that you're actually going to be able to do what you say you're going to do in the country. So spending a little bit of time on the affiliation letter is a good investment for you. Oh, and one other note about folks who are heading to Europe. A lot of European countries will take the month of August off. So if you are interested in starting this affiliation conversation, you should probably begin that pretty soon. And if you haven't already, and try and get those letters and those asks done before we hit that August date, because after that, like usually folks are not checking their email, they're off enjoying their summers, and you may not hear from them again until September. So always a good idea to start early on this. All right, so here's another example. So this one is for, wait for the thing to show me what it is. Okay, so this is a research project in the UK. So again, on university letterhead, or no, they want to study a master's degree.
What screen are you sharing right now?
Which screen are you seeing right now?
Crafting the affiliation ask worksheet. Can't talk either. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me know. Sorry about that, y'all.
That's okay.
It was showing something completely different. All right, now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Anyways, this is the letter that I was showing you from the University of Potsdam. So again, Fulbright, like letterhead to the Fulbright Commission. And again, having that letter. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know that. So that was a research one. This is a study grant, so you can kind of see what it might look like for a study grant. So this applicant's plan to come to Queen Mary University of London to study a master's degree in global health and policy. Completely impressed by enthusiasm and energy enthusiasm. Shares a little bit of a story of their conversation about the students' interest in neurology, and gives a little bit of background from the letter writer, saying that they are the co-principal investigator of the specific study, and the applicant will be welcome in the lab. So that's another good thing to kind of show, is that relationship that you will have with the affiliate or the individual representing the affiliate. A little bit about what they'll be doing and what they'll be working on, and then the applicant will be welcome in my lab. We'll make a plan for the dissertation that she'll work on as part of her program. And again, signed. So those are a couple of examples. There are many examples throughout the different letters that are included in that one folder. So you can look at these. You can even like share them as examples for how to write a good letter of affiliation. And this one, I will say, has a little bit more information. So hopefully y'all can see this one. This is for the University of Stirling. This is for someone who is doing just a degree program and is doing research on their interests in public and regarding the general public and pharmacists in their attitudes towards the broader health advice provider role that a pharmacist can offer. This one does include a little bit more information about the recommender themselves. Sometimes that can be helpful, but it's good to kind of know who the recommender is. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer, as it is here. I would find that in the ideal letters of affiliation, there'd be a little bit more about the applicant, but as you can see, this one was also successful. So if you're doing a study program and you're finding that you're not able to get like a ton of like details into the affiliation letter, that can work as well. Preferable to have details, but also there is support that's coming from here. All right, so I'm going to stop this share and do a new share so that we can make sure that we are all looking at the same screen this time. All right, questions on that? Okay. You're back. So then the question becomes, who do you ask for affiliation? Which I'm guessing is probably the next question on everyone's mind. So if you don't already have someone in mind, there are a couple of different avenues you can go down to figure out who you should ask about affiliation. So first off, I would say talk with your professors here at USC. do they have any networks? Do they know anybody who's in the country that you're going to, or do they have connections to different professional networks that they could leverage to get you in contact with a person? Because sometimes when you're kind of digging through these university websites, it can be confusing. It can be unclear who you should talk to or even how to contact them, depending on what country you're looking at. So start with who you know and who they know. And that can be a really helpful way to get a connection. And plus you'll have that personal touch, which always, I don't know about always, but usually will help when it comes to answering emails, getting your emails answered if they recognize someone who's sending them, and your professors could potentially do an introduction. Second thing is maybe check in with Education Abroad. You can browse their programs on the website or just email them and see if USC has an existing partnership with a university in the country you're going to. And that can be a good starting point, and they can connect you with their contact over there, and maybe they'll have some advice for who to reach out to and how. Use your networks. So if you're in a professional organization, a social organization, do they have a listserv that you could ask? So can you send an email and be like, hey, Society of Geography, I don't know why I'm on geography today, but Society of Geography, do you know of anyone at the University of Geography in Switzerland that I could talk to? And maybe somebody does, or they might know a friend of a friend of a friend who has a connection there. So that's another great way to kind of leverage that, or to see if there are people in your organization's member rosters that are part of the university that you're looking to go to. So again, like doing some research, looking around, seeing what connections you might be able to make. And then finally, cold emailing is definitely an option here. So this is something where if you're looking at the website, you look through all these other kind of avenues for making these connections, and you looked at the website and you just find somebody that like, hey, their research is really interesting. It's really aligned with what I do. They're the department chair or they're the professor of what I want to study. Like, you can cold email them. Professors do get cold emails fairly frequently, and that can be a good way to form a connection as well. And usually if you've gotten the wrong person, they will direct you to the person that it would be best for you to talk to. So again, keep trying around, keep looking. This may take a little while, so starting early is the best way to set yourself up for success. For the letters of affiliation, it's very helpful to have those by the August 16th deadline, and in fact is ideal. If you are still working on that, what we can do is if you've made contact with someone and you're still working on a letter of affiliation, we can take those emails, you can send them directly to me, or kind of a record of your conversations, and we can share that with the committee to help them with their review process. So this is one where you don't necessarily have to have the letter in hand, although that is strongly preferred. Keep in touch with us and let us know if you're having difficulties getting that letter. All right. So how to ask. So we know who to ask now. How do we do this? So this is actually a real life Fulbright grantee who was interested in getting an affiliation from a university that they didn't really know. They had a little bit of a connection, but they were starting basically from square one. So there are a couple of different elements of the affiliation ask, and here they are highlighted in glorious color. So there's an introduction where you say who you are, a connection, why you're reaching out to this person, how you might know them, like if you happen to share a contact, your purpose, why you're reaching out to them, your request, what you're hoping to talk to them about or what you want them to do, resources. So again, just like with the letters of recommendation, you want to set your affiliate up for success. So sharing a copy of your CV or your proposal can be really helpful in giving them more information so that they feel good about responding to you. A contact number, obviously how to get in touch with you. And then of course, thank yous. Thank yous are very important in everyday life, but also in fellowships. So for this example, this student says, "Dear Professor X, I am a history graduate student at the University of Illinois." That's your introduction. Working under Professor Y, who this person knows. There's your connection. I'm in the process of applying for a Fulbright Research Fellowship for the 2017-2018 academic year, your purpose, and I'm looking for a Russian institution willing to let me affiliate with them should I receive the fellowship. That's your request. And then again, that connection, Professor Y encouraged me to reach out to you to see if you or one of your colleagues would be willing to write me a letter of affiliation. As a resource, they attached a draft of their research proposal to give you a sense of their intellectual interest in the project I envision. They happen to be in the country, so they let them know that and said, here is my number. Happy to answer any questions and thank you in advance for your consideration. So that's a pretty typical affiliation ask. So introduction, connection, purpose, request, resources, contact, and thank you. And that worksheet that I showed you for longer than I anticipated, that is something that you can actually use to draft up an affiliation ask. And of course, again, your national fellowship advisors, like I'm happy to look at any emails and offer feedback before you press send to your affiliate. So if you're feeling a little nervous or you just want somebody else's eyes on it, we're there to do that. I heard a joke one time, like behind every well-crafted email are 6 people like furiously typing. So, you know, it takes a village to write an email. So again, we can help. So as we move into kind of the conclusion of our presentation portion, I do want to urge you, of course, to keep in touch with us. Fulbright Teams chat is full of amazing resources like the letters of affiliation, the affiliation worksheet. Make an appointment if you have questions, if you want to just talk things through, if you want more one-on-one time to discuss any of the topics that we cover in Focus on Fulbright or anywhere else. You can definitely get in touch with us and schedule time to meet with us. And our next Focus on Fulbright reminder is June 20th, same place, same time. All right. So with that, I'm going to conclude our recording and move on to the discussion portion of the affiliation letters presentation. Thank you so much and good night.